Hello, team players. So, Paizo just came out with a bunch of new information, but I'm going to start with the Starfinder 2E field tests. So, it's time to talk about the Envoy. Let's dive in. So, when they started doing Starfinder 2E field tests, the Envoy was definitely the class I was looking the most forward to. As in Starfinder 1E, they're all about teamwork. I thought that they would be a lot like the martial archetype from Pathfinder 2E. And they are to some extent. However, honestly, I was kind of disappointed. But maybe that's because I've already looked at the Mystic, and the Mystic was kind of insane. Don't get me wrong, I do think that the Envoy is good, it's just not as good as I expected it to be. But let's talk about it so that you can make the decision for yourself. Envoys are a charisma-based class and get 8 plus their constitution modifier in hit point. They're trained in perception and fortitude saves, but expert in reflex and will saves. For skills, they're trained in either deception, diplomacy, or intimidation, as well as a skill associated with their subclass, which is called a leadership style. And they also get 6 plus their intelligence modifier extra skills on top of that. So yes, they are very much skill monkeys, getting almost as many skills as rogues do. They're also trained in simple and martial weapons as well as unarmed attacks, which everybody is, and light armor and unarmored defense. And of course, like most martial classes, they're trained in Envoy Class DC. For class features, of course, we get the standard ancestry stuff, as well as attribute boosts, and the initial proficiencies I just covered. And then we get into Envoy directives. These are orders or strategies that benefit allies if they follow them. Each of these also includes a way that the Envoy can lead by example. If the Envoy themselves follows their own directive before the end of their turn, they unlock an additional advantage for themselves and their allies. However, the Envoy can replace the visual trait with the auditory trait or simply add that trait to these directives, representing words of encouragement rather than guiding motions. Envoys start with the Get 'em directive. You single out an enemy for you and your allies to concentrate attacks on. Select a creature within 60 feet. That creature gets a -1 circumstance penalty to AC until the start of your next turn. If you lead by example, you and your allies get a +1 circumstance bonus to damage against that creature. Increase this damage by 1 at 5th level and every 5 levels after. You also gain the Size Up and Saw It Coming activities. Size Up is very similar to the Pursue a Lead Investigator ability. However, you can only use Size Up once per hour rather than once per 10 minutes like Pursue a Lead. And to use Size Up, it must be on a particular individual, not just a clue like the Investigator's Pursue a Lead. The target of this ability is called an asset. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to deception, diplomacy, intimidation, and perception checks made against your assets or in relation to the asset if the target knows the assets. You also get a +1 circumstance bonus to recall knowledge checks about your asset. However, you can only have one asset at a time. If you use Size Up again, the new asset replaces the previous one. With Saw It Coming, if you're about to roll initiative in a combat in which your asset is one of the opponents, you can use a free action to get a +1 bonus on your initiative roll and do one of the following. Interact to draw a weapon, step, or stride. This can be extremely helpful because not only does it give you a better chance of going first, thus getting your directive up right away, but it's also great action economy, as it allows you to step or stride or even draw a weapon if you don't already have one drawn. Very good ability here. But your asset does have to be part of the battle, which makes this a little situational. Now we come to our subclasses known as leadership styles. These give you training in a particular skill as well as a leadership perk. In addition, at 6th level, certain actions become your acts of leadership, allowing you to lead by example even if you don't use the acts of leadership prescribed in your directive. Our first leadership style is from the front. This is the Tank Envoy. You become trained in athletics and medium armor. In addition, when you gain light armor expertise and light armor mastery, you become an expert and master in medium armor as well. In addition, at 6th level, raising a shield and taking a move action to move into an enemy's reach count as acts of leadership. Then we have From the Shadows. Just like it sounds like, this is the Stealth leadership style. You become trained in stealth and gain the Assurance Stealth skill feat as a bonus feat. At 6th level, hiding, sneaking, and taking cover count as acts of leadership. Then we have Guns Blazing. This is the ranged leadership style. You become trained in acrobatics and gain incredible initiative as a bonus feat. At 6th level, making a ranged strike against a foe that has a multiple attack penalty, making an area fire or auto fire attack, or reloading an empty ranged weapon all count as acts of leadership. In the spotlight is the performance-based leadership style. You become trained in performance and gain the impressive performance skill feat as a bonus feat. At 6th level, performing or issuing a directive count as acts of leadership. Hotshot is the pilot leadership style. You become trained in piloting and gain express driver as a bonus feat. And at 6th level, your new acts of leadership are driving, taking control, and performing a stunt. Express driver allows you to increase the speed of a vehicle by half if you succeed at a piloting lore check. If you're in a campaign with a lot of starship combat, this could be the leadership style for you. Then we've got Infosphere Director. This is the hacker leadership style. You become trained in computers and gain digital diversion as a bonus feat. Your new acts of leadership at 6th level are to create a diversion using computers or to recall knowledge. It sounds to me like digital diversion lets you create a diversion using computers. But we don't know that for sure yet because this is just a field test. And finally, for leadership styles, we have Through Desperate Times, which is the medic leadership style. You become trained in medicine and gain the battle medicine skill feats. At 6th level, your acts of leadership are administer first aid, use battle medicine, or use a healing item on an ally. These subclasses all seem really good, but Hotshot seems the most situational to me. If you're piloting a starship a lot in your campaign, then pick that one. Otherwise, pick something else. And of course, you get your standard Envoy feats and skill feats. However, Envoys get just as many skill increases as Rogues do. So that's a skill increase every single level past first. But they get the standard amount of skill feats, which I think is pretty interesting. But I do understand why. Rogues need those extra skill feats in order to do more stuff with their skills. But Envoys have plenty of things to do with skills, so they don't need a huge amount of skill feat like Rogues get. In addition, Envoys get the Adaptive Talent ability at level 3. Once per day during your daily preparations, you can choose one skill feat that you qualify for. You gain that feat until you prepare again. Just like normal, you can't use this feat as a prerequisite for a permanent character option because it's temporary. But you can use it to give you a temporary other option. For example, taking multilingual in order to get access to a new language. At 9th and 15th level, you can gain one additional skill feat per day in this way. You can use feats that you gain in this way as prerequisites for other feats that you gain in this way. But you still can't use feats gained in this way as a prerequisite for permanent character abilities. This ability is another reason why Envoys don't need as many skill feats as Rogues do. They can just pick the skill feats they want every day. And of course, general feats like Normal and Wise to the Game. You gain a +1 status bonus to perception DCs against attempts to lie or feint you, and attempts to divert your attention using Create a Diversion. You also gain this bonus to will DCs against attempts to demoralize you. These bonuses are +2 against your assets. How good this is going to depend on how often you run into these types of things in your game. But Frightened is one of the most debilitating conditions in the game, so that last one is good, depending on how often you run into fear in Starfinder 2e. At 5th level, you become an expert in perception and gain the Practice Influencer action. Once per day as a free action, if you are about to roll a deception, diplomacy, or intimidation check and you haven't rolled yet, you can roll that check twice and take the better results. This is fantastic, especially if you use it during combat with intimidation. Getting advantage on an intimidation check to demoralize is huge, just because fear is such a good debuff. We will have to see if there's a way to keep the enemy frightened in either this class or one of the other Starfinder 2e classes later. So far, I don't think there is, but that in combination with this would be amazing. Also at this level, you gain weapon expertise, so that's expert in simple and martial weapons plus unarmed attacks. In addition, against your asset or the target of your Get 'em directive, you gain the critical specialization effects of all weapons that you are an expert in. Okay, now we finally get to what I'm sure a lot of you guys clicked on this video for, Envoy Feats. Starting with Acquire Assets. For one action, you can make a melee or ranged strike against a creature that is not your assets. If you hit, that creature becomes your asset as if you had used Size Up. In addition, if you critically hit, you can immediately make a recall knowledge check about that creature. This is basically the Envoy's version of combat assessment from the fighter, except that you need to critically hit to do the recall knowledge. But just the fact that there's a feat that says, if I hit you, you're my assets, is awesome. That means even if you don't have time to make someone your asset outside of combat, you can immediately make them your asset in combat. This is all for one action, so fantastic. Highly recommend this feat. Next is Diverse Schemes, allowing you to have two assets at the same time. Another great feat. Take Pardon Me, you must be trained in Deception. You can use Deception instead of Acrobatics to tumble through an enemy space. In addition, whenever you successfully tumble through using Deception, the foe whose space you pass through is suppressed until the end of its next turn. If you don't know, Suppress was covered in the Soldier field test, and that is a -1 penalty on attack rolls and a -5 foot status penalty to speed. Very good debuff, and the Soldier goes into more detail on that because Suppress is like the Soldier's main thing. Anyway, moving on, we have the Equip feat, which requires you to be trained in Intimidation. As a reaction, if a creature within 30 feet is damaged by an ally's strike, you can attempt to demoralize that creature. Again, fantastic if you're trained in Intimidation. And Intimidation is probably going to be one of the best ones to pick for your skills at the beginning. Then we have Take 'em Alive. For one action, until the beginning of your next turn, you and your allies don't take the -2 penalty for making non-lethal attacks with lethal weapons. In addition, when you or your allies cast a spell that deals damage and doesn't have the Death or Void traits, you can add the non-lethal trait to that spell. And this is a directive, so you do get a lead by example benefit. If you make a non-lethal attack against a single target before the end of your turn, the target of your attack is treated as if you had used the Get 'em directive on them, but you don't gain the benefits of lead by example on that directive. So that means -1 to their AC, which honestly isn't bad. And lastly, for level 1 feats, we have Watch Out. As a reaction, if a creature targets an ally within 60 feet with an attack, and you can see both the attacker and the ally, you can grant that ally a +2 circumstance bonus on their AC against that attack. This feat would be amazing with the From the Front leadership style, as that just gives enemies an incentive to attack you rather than your allies. And From the Front is the tank Envoy. For second level feats, we have Change Up Plans. As a reaction, if the target of your Get 'em is reduced to 0 hit points, and you've used Get 'em on your last turn, you can use Get 'em on a new target, but you don't count as leading by example on this new target. This follows all the normal restrictions of Get 'em. This is good because Get 'em only lasts for 1 round. So you do have to keep using it to keep giving that benefit. However, the downside of this is that you don't get lead by example. But you can still use Get 'em on your next turn and still gain the benefits of lead by example then. So overall, this feat's not bad. Could be better, but not bad. Next we have Don't You Die on Me. A fantastic one for the Through Desperate Times leadership style. Remember, that's the medicine one. For 1 action, you can target a single adjacent dying ally. Reduce that target's dying value by 1. If this would reduce their dying value to 0, they lose the dying condition and don't gain or increase the wounded condition. But they do remain unconscious. However, once you use this on an ally, they become immune to this feat for 1 hour. You'll need to use this feat pretty much right after an ally goes down, the first time, because that's when this feat has the most benefits. As dying 0, no wounded condition is by far the best use of this. But if you use this feat that way, it's a fantastic feat. Highly recommend, especially for the Through Desperate Times leadership style. Get In There is another 1 action directive. Until the beginning of your next turn, you and all allies within 100 feet gain a +5 status bonus to their speed. They gain an additional 5 feet of speed at 7th level, 12th level, and 17th level. In addition, if you lead by example by stepping or striding before the end of your turn, each ally within 100 feet that can sense you can immediately step or stride up to half their speed as a free action. This is rounded down to the nearest 5 feet. This directive is flat out amazing because it's a free action, not a reaction, a free action. It means allies can use other reactions. Fantastic for the beginning of combat when you really want to get in there. Next, we've got another directive with Search High and Low. Until the beginning of your next turn, you and all allies gain a +2 circumstance bonus on perception checks to seek. This increases to +3 at 7th level, +4 at 12th level, and +5 at 17th level. In addition, if you lead by example by seeking before the end of your turn, all allies within 100 feet can seek as a free action. If you're running into a lot of enemies that want to hide from you, this is a feat to take. As not only does it give a bonus to seek checks, but if you seek, everybody gets to seek for a free action, which is downright insane if you're looking for something. And finally, for level 2, we have Suppressing Insults. You must be trained in intimidation to take this feat. However, if you successfully demoralize a creature, that creature is also suppressed as long as it is frightened. And these two do stack. Frightened is a status penalty, and suppressed is a circumstance penalty. So yeah, this is probably the best feat at level 2. And of course, now it's time to talk about level 4 feats. Starting with Broadened Assessment. When you use Size Up to make a target your assets, you also gain a +1 circumstance bonus to acrobatics, athletics, and stealth checks against all of your assets. This can be really good in combat and out of combat. Remember that Size Up gives you a bonus on your charisma-based checks, and this gives you a bonus on your more physical stuff. You get both, so very effective feat here. Then we've got Danger Sense. As a free action, if you're about to roll initiative, you can select one ally. You and that ally both roll initiative as normal, but you both get to use the higher results. You also apply the bonus from Saw It Coming if you're rolling against your assets. Another really good feat here, as you and an ally get to take the higher of your 2 initiatives. Next up is Get Your Head in the Game. Target one ally within 30 feet. That ally suppresses the fatigue condition for 1d4 rounds and loses the off guard condition. If the target is off guard because of a continual effect and would immediately regain it on their next turn, you suppress the off guard condition for the same number of rounds as you would fatigue. This does not prevent the target from becoming off guard in other ways. Once you use this feat on an ally, they are immune to it for 1 hour. The fatigue condition isn't common, like at all. But off guard, that is very common. And it does stack with status penalties like frightened. So this feat can be very effective depending on the situation in combat. I do highly recommend this feat, even if you won't use it for fatigued very often. To take not in the face, you need to be trained in deception. By the way, absolutely love that name. That is a fantastic name for this. As a reaction, if a creature targets you with an attack, you can attempt a deception check against the target's will DC. After the effect concludes, the creature that attacked you is immune to this feat for 1 hour. On a critical success, you throw the target completely off, and they take a -2 circumstance penalty to attack and damage rolls until the start of their next turn. On a success, it's the same, except it's a -1 penalty. On a failure, they only take a -1 penalty to the triggering attack roll. On a critical failure, the target is unaffected. Sadly, this feat isn't great. The best envoy to use this with is the from the front leadership style envoy. As with that envoy, creatures want to attack you, and this keeps you up. The other envoys can make use of this, especially ones that don't want to be attacked, but for teamwork, the best one is the from the front. Definitely, no question. When I first looked at the envoy, I wasn't all that impressed. However, after going through all the feats and abilities with you guys, I do think they have some pretty insane options. I still don't think they're as good as the Mystic, but the Mystic was kind of insane. But they are still good, especially since some of their options give allies free actions and not reactions. Some of you might not understand how huge that is. Giving allies these abilities and also allowing them to use their own reactions is pretty insane. Anyway, I do want to thank Underhill and Daniel Landis for supporting the channel. Speaking of which, starting with this video, all my channel members are going to get my videos early. So if you're interested in that, become a channel member today. And if you want more Starfinder 2e field test content, you can check out these videos here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.